My name is Maya, and I was 19 years old when this happened to me. It was 7:30 in the evening when I decided to leave my best friend Emma's house, even though she kept telling me to stay the night. Looking back now, I realize that one small decision that afternoon set everything in motion. I had no idea that the next hour of my life would teach me something about the world that I wish I could forget. Before I get into what happened, if you've ever had a gut feeling that something was wrong with someone you just met, please drop a comment below. And if this story makes your skin crawl like it made mine, hit like and subscribe, because I have more stories just like this one. I had been friends with Emma since we were kids. We grew up together. We knew everything about each other. But that day, after spending the entire afternoon at her house, I decided I needed to get home. My parents were expecting me. I kept telling Emma I should leave, but she kept insisting I stay. Just stay a little longer, stay for dinner, stay the night. But I was firm. I needed to go home. Emma lived in a house up on a hill. The area was kind of suburban, but with a rural feel to it. Not quite the city, not quite the country. Just a place where people lived out their lives quietly without too much going on. To get home, I had to take the bus from a stop, about a 10-minute walk from her house. It was a long walk down the hill to get to the stop, but it was worth it because the bus went directly to my neighborhood. The sun was starting to set when I reached the bus stop. That golden hour light where everything looks soft but shadows are getting longer. The bus stop was just a small shelter with a bench and a sign. Nothing fancy, just a place where people waited for the bus. And when I got there, I saw a guy already sitting on the bench. He looked odd to me. That was my first impression. He had a hard face, the kind of face that looked like it had been through a lot. His hair was long and messy, falling past his shoulders. He looked homeless, like someone who lived rough and didn't have anywhere to be. He wore a gray sweatshirt and black jeans that were torn in multiple places. His shoes looked like they hadn't been cleaned in months. I am 5'3". I have always known that I don't look intimidating to strangers. I look young. I look small. I look like someone who you could probably push around if you wanted to. So I made sure to maintain a distance from him. I stood on the other side of the bus stop shelter. I kept my face serious. I didn't want to seem friendly or approachable. I wanted to seem like someone who should be left alone. My best friend Emma called me right after I got to the stop. She was checking in, asking if I'd gotten on the bus yet. We talked for a while. It was a good excuse to avoid making eye contact with the guy on the bench. I could see him in my peripheral vision. He was looking at me. Every 5 to 10 seconds, his eyes would flick over to me. Just quick glances. But they were there. I could feel them. Then he pulled out his phone and got busy texting. That was good. That meant his attention was on something else. After I hung up with Emma, I checked the time. 7:45. My phone's battery was down to 10%. I felt stupid for not charging it at Emma's house, but I hadn't thought I'd need a full battery just to ride the bus home. I stared down the empty highway. The bus was supposed to come, but there was no sign of it. The road stretched out in both directions with nothing on it. Just asphalt and trees and the fading light of the evening. I was already uneasy. Being alone at a bus stop with a strange man was not how I wanted to spend my time, but I didn't have a choice. I had to wait for the bus. That's when he stood up. He got up from the bench and started walking toward me. My stomach immediately went tight. I didn't know what he wanted. I didn't want to find out. So I looked down at my phone and started scrolling. I was trying to ignore him, trying to make myself seem unavailable and uninterested in any kind of interaction. He came close to me, too close. The smell of him reached me before he spoke. It wasn't a good smell. It was the smell of someone who hadn't showered in a long time. Stale and sour. "Hey, do you have a lighter?" I didn't look at his face. I looked at my phone, and I replied in an irritated voice, "No, I don't smoke." The tone of my voice was clear enough. I was making it obvious that I didn't like him near me, that I didn't want to talk to him, but he didn't move. He just stood there, facing me, not saying anything, just standing there and waiting for something. For me to look at him, maybe. For me to engage with him somehow. I got really annoyed. I looked up at him and made eye contact for the first time. His eyes were lifeless. That's the only way I can describe them. Like there was nothing behind them. Like he was looking at me but not really seeing me at all. I said it again. "Dude, I told you I don't have a lighter. Now get away from me." I was trying to sound tough, trying to sound like someone who wouldn't back down. But inside I was scared. My heart was beating faster. He gave me a creepy smile. His mouth twisted up in a way that didn't look natural, and then he started to walk backward. But he was still facing me as he walked. His eyes never left mine. And then he said something that made my blood run cold. "You girls like to pretend that you hate attention, but that is exactly what all you bitches live for." I lost it. I screamed at him. I screamed at the top of my voice because I was angry and scared, and I didn't know what else to do. "Listen, you jerk. If you don't leave this place right now, I'm going to call the cops. My friend's house is nearby. Her father has a gun, and she already knows I'm standing here. All I have to do is scream once and you're going to be in great danger." I was bluffing about almost everything. Emma's father didn't have a gun as far as I knew, but this guy didn't need to know that. He wasn't expecting such a reaction from me. His face went pale, like he wasn't used to girls standing up to him, like he was used to them being scared and compliant. That's when I saw the car coming. A private car came down the road toward us. It slowed down as it approached the bus stop, and then it came to a stop right in front of us. There was an old woman driving. She looked at me and said, "Do you want me to drop you off, dear? I live down the hill." I couldn't believe what was happening. It felt like a gift, like the universe was answering my silent prayer. This woman had just saved me from whatever was about to happen. I didn't waste a single second. I said yes, thank you so much. And I got into her car without looking back. The old woman drove away from the bus stop, and as we drove past that guy, I looked in the rearview mirror. He was standing there with an expressionless face, and then he smiled at me. He smirked. That smile haunted me. I couldn't believe his audacity. I couldn't believe he had the nerve to smile at me like that after everything he'd said. I quickly turned toward the lady and thanked her from the bottom of my heart. I told her that if she hadn't come along, I didn't know what would have happened. She looked at me and gave me a big smile. It was a warm smile, a kind smile. I felt safe with her. She asked me what I was doing there with that guy. I told her I didn't know him, that he was bothering me in a very offensive manner, that he had scared me. She nodded like she understood, and then she said something that made complete sense at the time, but would later take on a completely different meaning. Women these days need to be more careful. You never know when you step into a trap. I thanked her again. I told her that she had saved me from a really bad situation. All she did was keep smiling. That warm smile, that kind smile. We drove onto the highway and there weren't many cars. But the lady was driving slowly. Really slowly. I thought maybe she was being cautious about driving alone at night, or maybe she wasn't used to driving much. But after everything I had just been through, I couldn't complain. I just sat in the passenger seat and waited to get home. The lady told me that she was going to visit her nephew who lived down the hill. She said she would stop by his house for a second to let them know she was coming, and then she would drop me off safely. I was very happy with her kind behavior. She seemed genuine. She seemed like a nice person who had just wanted to help. I engaged in small talk with her to pass the time. We talked about the weather, about where I lived, about what I did. Just casual conversation to fill the silence during the drive. After about 20 minutes, she pulled into a gas station. The place was empty. There were no other cars, no other people. Just us. She got out of the car with her purse. She told me to wait inside, and she went to pay for the gas. I was left alone in her car, and that's when I decided to call my parents. They were probably wondering where I was, why it was taking so long to get home. I reached for my phone, but the battery was completely dead. It had died while I was sitting in the car. I couldn't call anyone. I couldn't reach out for help. I was stuck, but then I saw it. The lady had left her phone on the dashboard. It was just sitting there. I thought maybe she wouldn't mind if I used it to make a quick call to my parents. I could explain to her later. She seemed nice. She seemed like she would understand. I picked up her phone. I swiped the screen to turn it on. The phone wasn't password protected. I got lucky. I could access it without any problem. And then I saw the wallpaper. The phone wallpaper was a photo. It showed the lady standing next to a man. He was tall and bearded. He had long, messy hair. My stomach absolutely dropped. Because that man, that was the guy from the bus stop. That was the creepy guy who had frightened me, who had said those horrible things to me, who had smiled at me with that twisted smile. It was him. This woman. This nice old lady who had just saved me from the creepy guy. She was connected to him. She had a photo of him on her phone. She knew him. They knew each other. My hands started shaking. I felt like I was going to throw up. The pieces came together in my mind. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't random. This was planned. This was intentional. The guy at the bus stop had scared me on purpose. He had made me want to get away from him. And then this woman had shown up at exactly the right moment, offering me a ride, making me feel safe. And I had gotten into her car. I had trusted her. And now I was alone, in an isolated gas station, in the middle of the evening, with no phone, with no way to call for help. I didn't think. I just reacted. I grabbed her phone and I got out of the car. I didn't close the door carefully. I just opened it and ran. I ran away from that gas station as fast as my legs could carry me. I was crying. I was sobbing in fear. I was terrified in a way that I had never been terrified before. I ran toward the highway. I was looking for people. I was looking for anyone who could help me. I dialed my dad's number while I was running. My fingers shook so badly that I could barely punch in the numbers. But I got through. He picked up. He was leaving work. He was getting ready to head home. I couldn't explain everything perfectly. I was too scared, too out of breath. But I managed to tell him that I was in grave danger, that I needed his help, that he needed to come get me right now. He told me he was coming. He told me to stay on the highway. He told me not to go anywhere. But I didn't stop running. I was too scared that the woman might follow me, that she might chase after me in her car. So I kept running straight ahead, down the highway, into the darkness. My dad picked me up from the side of the road. I saw his car coming and I waved my arms, and he pulled over. I got in and I just broke down completely. I hugged my mom, who was in the car with him, and I cried like a baby. I told them everything. About the guy at the bus stop, about the lady, about the photo on her phone. My dad was angry. He was furious. But he was also proud. He told me that I had done the right thing, that I had trusted my instincts, and most importantly, I had taken her phone with me. That was crucial. He took her phone and he called 911 right there in the car. He gave the police the phone and told them everything. He told them about the kidnapping duo, about the trap they had set, about the plan to lure me to their car and take me somewhere. The next morning, the police came to our house. They asked me a ton of questions. They wanted details about what the guy looked like, what the lady looked like, what she was wearing, what they said to me. Everything. I told them every single detail I could remember. Because I wanted them to catch these people. I wanted them to stop before they did this to anyone else. 2 days later, with the help of the lady's phone, the police arrested both of them. They found evidence on the phone, messages, photos, everything they needed to build a case. And then they told me something that made my blood run cold. This woman and her son had been running a kidnapping operation for at least a year, maybe longer. They had targeted young women, lonely women, women traveling alone. Their method was simple and effective. The son would position himself at places where lone women would be. Bus stops, train stations, rest areas. He would make himself seem threatening. He would say inappropriate things. He would make them uncomfortable. And then his mother would arrive in her car like an angel sent from heaven. She would offer them a ride, and terrified young women desperate to get away from the threatening man would accept. Once the women were in her car, the mother would drive them away from civilization. And then they would kidnap them. They would hold them for ransom. They would call the families and demand money. And if the families didn't pay, if the ransom wasn't delivered, then things would get much worse. The police told me that they had killed 3 young women over the past 2 years. 3 women who had fallen for their trap. 3 women who had gotten into that car and never come back out. And I was supposed to be their 4th victim. If the lady hadn't stopped at that gas station, I might not be here right now. If I hadn't thought to call my parents using her phone. If I hadn't looked at that wallpaper. If I hadn't run. If my dad hadn't been leaving work at exactly that moment. If any one of those things had been different, I would have been number 4. It's been 3 months now. 3 months since that night at the bus stop. I bought a car with my own savings. I drive my own car everywhere I go. If it gets late and I'm not home, I stay at Emma's place. I don't wait for buses. I don't take rides from strangers. I don't take chances. But I still remember what that lady said to me that night. Women these days need to be more careful. You never know when you step into a trap. She was right. She was absolutely right. And I learned that lesson in the most terrifying way possible. I still have nightmares about what could have happened. I still see that creepy smile in my mind when I close my eyes at night. I still remember the taste of fear in my mouth. I still remember how it felt to realize that the person who had saved me was actually part of the plan all along. The world is not always as it seems. Kind people are not always kind. Helpful people are not always helpful. And sometimes the person offering you safety is the greatest threat of all. I learned that lesson, and I will never forget it. If you're watching this and you're a young woman who travels alone, please be careful. Please trust your instincts. Please don't get into cars with strangers, no matter how nice they seem. Please don't ignore that feeling in your stomach that tells you something is wrong. That feeling might be the only thing standing between you and someone who has decided you are their next target. Because that night I learned that evil doesn't always look evil. Sometimes it wears a kind smile and offers you a ride home. And sometimes it takes meeting the darkness to understand how precious the light really is.